Imagine a predator longer than a T-Rex, heavier than a great white shark, with a skull built like a crocodile, a spine covered in 6-foot blades, and legs so weird, scientists couldn't agree on whether it walked on 2 or 4 of them. Imagine a creature so bizarre that for nearly a century, the only fossils we had were destroyed in a World War II bombing raid. A dinosaur so strange, so impossible looking, that when scientists finally got new bones in 2014, they were genuinely shocked, not pleasantly surprised, shocked. The kind of shocked where you look at the data 3 times because you assume you made a mistake. That animal is Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, and nothing about it makes sense. Not its size, not its shape, not its behavior, not even how it moved. Every time paleontologists think they've got a handle on this creature, it throws something new at them. A new bone, a new isotope ratio, a new interpretation that flips the previous model on its head. Today, we're going through every single thing that makes Spinosaurus the most bizarre predator to ever walk, or maybe swim, this earth. We're talking anatomy, behavior, ecology, the insane history of how we discovered it, and what it means for everything we thought we understood about dinosaurs. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never look at dinosaurs the same way again. Let's get into it. Part 1. A dinosaur, unlike any other. Before we get into the weird stuff, and there is a lot of weird stuff, let's set the stage properly, because context matters here. Spinosaurus lived roughly 95 to 100 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period. Its fossils come primarily from North Africa, from what is today Egypt and Morocco. The landscape back then was almost unrecognizable compared to the arid, sandy terrain of modern North Africa. We're talking about a massive, sprawling river delta system. Think something like the Amazon, but hotter, wetter, and filled with creatures that would make your nightmares look boring. Enormous fish, the size of cars, giant crocodilians with flat, blunt teeth built for crushing shells, flying reptiles with 12-foot wingspans casting shadows over the water. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Spinosaurus, the biggest predator in the entire ecosystem. Now, here's the first thing you need to understand. Spinosaurus was not just big, it was absurdly, almost offensively big. Current estimates put it at somewhere between 14 and 15 meters long. That's about 46 to 50 feet. Some more aggressive estimates push it even further, towards 16 meters. And its weight? Somewhere between 7 and 20 metric tons, depending on the study and the methodology. Most researchers today land somewhere around 7 to 10 metric tons for a typical adult. That enormous range of uncertainty alone tells you something crucial. We are still, more than a century after its discovery, actively figuring this animal out. For context, Tyrannosaurus rex, the dinosaur everyone defaults to as the king of predators, was roughly 12 to 13 meters long and weighed somewhere between 8 and 14 metric tons. Spinosaurus was longer, significantly longer. That's not a minor footnote. That's a complete reshuffling of the record books. And yet, despite its superior size, Spinosaurus was built so fundamentally differently from T-Rex that comparing them feels almost category incorrect. They weren't competing versions of the same thing. They were predators from different worlds, hunting different prey, using completely different strategies. Here's another thing that gets lost in the popular telling. Spinosaurus was alive roughly 30 million years before T-Rex. These two animals never shared the same planet, never breathed the same air, never competed for the same prey. The famous fight scene in Jurassic Park 3, where Spinosaurus kills a T-Rex in the opening minutes, is not just unrealistic because Spinosaurus wins. It's unrealistic because those two animals existed 30 million years apart. That's longer than the entire span of human evolution, so we can put that scene to rest. Part 2. The body that broke every rule. Okay, let's talk about the actual anatomy of Spinosaurus, because this is where the strangeness really begins to stack up. Start with the head. Most large theropod dinosaurs, the group of two-legged meat-eaters that includes T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, Allosaurus, and Carnotaurus, had deep, robust, powerful skulls. The logic is straightforward. Deep skulls generate more bite force, and more bite force means you can crush bone, kill large prey quickly, and access the marrow inside bones for extra nutrition. It's a well-tested evolutionary strategy, and it worked brilliantly for tens of millions of years. Spinosaurus had none of that. Its skull was long, low, and narrow, more like a gharial or a crocodile than any other theropod dinosaur. The snout was elongated and tubular. The teeth were conical and round in cross-section, slightly recurved and interlocking. Exactly the kind of teeth you'd design if your goal was to grab and hold onto a slippery, thrashing fish, rather than deliver a bone-crushing bite. These were not weapons of blunt force. These were precision instruments for a specific purpose. But it gets more specific than that. Near the very tip of the snout, Spinosaurus had a cluster of small pits, called rosettes, in the bone. In modern crocodilians, these same structures are filled with pressure-sensitive nerve endings that can detect tiny vibrations and changes in water pressure. They essentially let crocodiles feel fish moving nearby, even in murky, low-visibility water. Spinosaurus had the same structures, which means it may have been able to hunt by sensing the movement of prey in water, without even needing to see it directly. That is not a generalist predator's toolkit. That is a highly specialized, precision-evolved, aquatic hunting apparatus on the face of a 15-meter dinosaur. Moved down the body, the neck was long, forward-projecting, and carried low rather than held vertically. The forelimbs, the arms, were long, robust, and ended in large curved claws, not tiny vestigial arms like T-Rex. Arms that were clearly functional, capable of grasping and pinning prey. The torso was relatively deep and wide. The hips were narrow, and the hind legs, this is critical, were short and stumpy, relative to the animal's overall body size. For a bipedal dinosaur, that's deeply unusual. Short legs mean a lower center of gravity and reduced stride length, which is bad for running and pursuing prey on land. It suggests an animal that wasn't primarily built for terrestrial locomotion. The feet were broad and flat, with elongated metatarsals. Some researchers have described them as somewhat paddle-like. And the tail. We'll get to the tail in detail in a moment, because the tail is one of the most important parts of this whole story. Part 3. The sail, a mystery that won't die. Let's address the most visually distinctive feature of Spinosaurus, the structure on its back. The neural spines, the vertical extensions of the backbone vertebrae, were enormous. Some of them extended over 1.65 meters upward from the body, which is taller than most adult humans. They were long, slightly forward curved, and created a dramatic ridge along the animal's back that has defined its visual identity since the very first reconstructions in 1915. The classic interpretation is that these spines supported a sail, a thin membrane of skin stretched between them, similar to what we see in the Permian synapsid dimetrodon or in modern sailfish. That's the image that became iconic. The Spinosaurus with the dramatic dorsal sail, looking like something between a dinosaur and a deep-sea fish. But there's a serious problem with the sail hypothesis, and it comes down to the bones themselves. When you look at cross-sections of those neural spines, when you actually cut through the bone and examine the internal structure, they are thick, dense, and robustly built. The internal bone architecture is compact and solid, more like what you'd find in the enlarged dorsal spines of a bison or a modern American buffalo than like the thin, lightweight struts you'd expect if the spines were simply tension members holding up a flat sail. This is why a competing hypothesis has gained significant traction. That Spinosaurus actually had a hump, a massive, fleshy dorsal hump, like a bison or a camel or a zebu cattle, filled with fat and muscle, a structural energy reserve rather than a display or thermoregulation structure. The sail versus hump debate is genuinely unresolved. Both sides have credible arguments. The sail camp points to surface area advantages for thermoregulation in an equatorial climate and to display functions. A giant sail would have been visually dramatic and useful for species recognition and mate attraction. The hump camp points to the bone density data and the metabolic advantages of having a large fat reserve in a seasonal, unpredictable environment. What's remarkable is that we are arguing about the shape of a major external feature of an animal this well known. It's a reminder of how incomplete our understanding of prehistoric life really is, and how much we rely on inference, analogy, and bone structure to reconstruct creatures we will never directly observe. Part 4. What did it actually eat? The skull tells us a lot. The teeth tell us more. But the full picture of Spinosaurus's diet is more nuanced than it ate fish. Yes, it ate fish. Almost certainly, fish were a primary component of its diet. The morphological evidence is overwhelming. The crocodile skull, the conical interlocking teeth, the vibration-sensing rosettes, the semi-aquatic body plan. All of it points toward a diet dominated by aquatic prey. And in its North African Cretaceous ecosystem, there was no shortage of impressive aquatic targets. Onchopristis was a giant sawfish that reached 6 meters in length, armored with a long rostrum lined with barbed teeth. Giant coelacanths, enormous lungfish, massive freshwater sharks. This ecosystem had fish that were themselves apex predators of their aquatic domain. The chemical evidence supports this too. Isotope analysis of Spinosaurus tooth enamel, specifically the ratios of oxygen and carbon isotopes, gives us a chemical fingerprint of what the animal was eating and drinking. A 2020 study in Nature found that these ratios in Spinosaurus matched the signatures of aquatic and semi-aquatic animals rather than fully terrestrial predators. The chemistry of the teeth is telling us at a molecular level that this animal spent a huge portion of its life in or near water. But Spinosaurus was not a dietary purist. It was enormous, it was opportunistic, and it had powerful forelimbs with large claws. We know from the fossil record that spinosaurid teeth, which are distinctive enough to identify to the group, have been found embedded in pterosaur bones, a flying reptile caught and consumed by Spinosaurus. Think about what that means. An animal the size of a city bus, snatching pterosaurs out of the air or off the ground. The ecological reach of this predator extended far beyond the water's edge. So the honest characterization is this: Spinosaurus was a semi-aquatic generalist opportunist with a strong specialization toward aquatic prey. It had the tools to exploit the river system more effectively than almost any other predator alive at the time, and it used those tools relentlessly. But it wasn't going to turn down a pterosaur that wandered too close. Part 5. It swam. Yes, really. This is the part where things get truly extraordinary. In 2020, Dr. Nizar Ibrahim and a team of international collaborators published a paper in Nature arguing something that would have seemed like science fiction just a decade earlier. Spinosaurus was not merely a wader. It was not simply a large predator that stood at the river's edge and dipped its long snout into the water to catch fish. It was, according to this research, a pursuit predator in open water, an active swimmer, potentially the first non-avian dinosaur known to science that was primarily aquatic in its lifestyle. The evidence is multi-layered and genuinely compelling. Start with the tail. New fossil material from Morocco revealed that the tail of Spinosaurus had unusually tall neural spines along its length, creating a deep, flexible, laterally flattened tail that bore a striking resemblance to the tails of modern aquatic reptiles, like crocodilians and monitor lizards that swim regularly. Computational fluid dynamics, modeling of the tail, essentially simulating how it would move through water, suggested it could generate significant propulsive thrust. This wasn't just a tail that could be used for swimming in a pinch. This was a tail that looked purpose-built for aquatic locomotion. Then there are the bones themselves. The leg bones of Spinosaurus have unusually high bone density, compact, heavy cortical bone with reduced internal cavities. In most terrestrial animals, hollow bones reduce weight and make movement on land more efficient. Dense bones do the opposite on land. They're heavier and energetically costly to move around. But in aquatic animals, dense bones serve as ballast. They help the animal control its buoyancy and stay submerged without constant effort. We see exactly this pattern in modern hippos, in sea turtles, in manatees. Spinosaurus had the same pattern. Add to that the short legs, the broad feet, the forward projecting low neck, and the fish hunting skull, and what emerges is a coherent picture. An animal that was genuinely, structurally adapted for life in the water, not as a secondary behavior, as a primary ecological strategy. Now, the scientific community did not receive this claim without pushback. Several prominent paleontologists argued that the tail morphology was being overinterpreted, that dense bones could have other explanations, and that calling Spinosaurus a pursuit swimmer was a step beyond what the evidence could support. It's a legitimate debate. Science should be exactly this contentious when extraordinary claims are being made. But even the most skeptical voices in this discussion generally acknowledge that Spinosaurus had a deeper, more committed relationship with aquatic environments than any other large theropod we know of. The argument is about degree, not direction. Part 6. The Lost Giant, a story of war and bones. The science of Spinosaurus is extraordinary, but the history of how we've come to understand it is equally dramatic and involves war, destruction, obsession, and one of the greatest paleontological detective stories of the modern era. The first Spinosaurus fossils were excavated from the Bahariya Formation in Egypt in 1912 by a team led by Richard Markgraf and working under the direction of German paleontologist Ernst Stromer von Reichenbach. Stromer spent years studying the material and formally described the species in 1915. Naming it Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, the Egyptian spine lizard. The fossils were housed in the paleontological collection in Munich. They were the holotype, the definitive reference specimens for the entire species. For the next 3 decades, those fossils sat in Munich as the world changed around them. Stromer himself, it should be noted, was a vocal opponent of the Nazi regime in Germany, a fact that made his institutional life increasingly difficult through the 1930s. He repeatedly requested that his fossils be moved to safety as World War II escalated. His requests were denied. The night of April 24th to 25th, 1944, Allied bombers struck Munich. The museum housing Stromer's collection took a direct hit. The original Spinosaurus holotype, the bones that had taken decades to excavate, transport, and study, was destroyed completely. Stromer's other African dinosaur specimens were destroyed alongside it. Irreplaceable scientific material, gone in one night. For the next 60 years, Spinosaurus was studied almost entirely from Stromer's original 1915 descriptions, some fragmentary additional specimens, and isolated teeth. The picture remained frustratingly incomplete. The turning point came in 2008 when fossil hunter Lassen Ait Belkacem discovered bones eroding from a cliff in Morocco's Kemkem beds. Those specimens eventually reached Dr. Nizar Ibrahim, who had been pursuing Spinosaurus material for years. What followed was a remarkable story. Ibrahim tracked down the original Moroccan fossil dealer by recognizing him from a description, literally. Finding a stranger in a foreign city based on an old photograph and a physical description. The material was studied, CT scanned, and combined with specimens from museum collections across Europe and North America. The result was the landmark 2014 paper in Science that gave us our first complete picture of Spinosaurus's body plan. Short legs, broad feet, and all, and the work continues. New material keeps emerging from the Kemkem. Every year, the picture gets sharper. Part 7. Why Spinosaurus changes everything. Let's pull back and think about what Spinosaurus actually means for our understanding of life on Earth. For most of paleontology's history, there was an unspoken assumption baked into how we thought about dinosaurs. They were fundamentally land animals. Yes, they were diverse. Yes, they ranged from house cat-sized insectivores to 30-meter-long sauropods, but they lived on land. The oceans and rivers belonged to other reptiles. That was the implicit model. Spinosaurus breaks that model. It represents a lineage of dinosaurs that, driven by evolutionary pressure and ecological opportunity, adapted so thoroughly to aquatic environments that the result looks almost nothing like what we expect a dinosaur to look like. Dense bones, paddle feet, crocodile skull, propulsive tail, fish hunting chemistry baked into its teeth. This is convergent evolution happening in real time in the fossil record, a dinosaur independently evolving. Many of the same features that crocodilians, hippos, and aquatic mammals evolved separately. Evolution doesn't care about our categories. It finds the efficient solution, regardless of what lineage is doing the evolving. It also completely reshapes how we understand the Cretaceous ecosystems of North Africa. If Spinosaurus was primarily aquatic, it wasn't competing with Carcharodontosaurus, a huge terrestrial theropod that lived in the same time and place for the same prey. They were partitioning the environment. One ruled the land, one ruled the water. The ecosystem was more stratified, more complex, and more ecologically sophisticated than we imagined. And perhaps most importantly, Spinosaurus is a lesson in scientific humility. We have known about this animal for over 110 years. We lost its holotype to a bombing raid. We spent decades working from fragments. We built models that turned out to be wrong. We revised those models when new evidence came in, and we will revise them again. That is not a failure. That is precisely what the scientific process is supposed to look like. Messy, iterative, honest, willing to be wrong. The universe is not obligated to be simple or intuitive. Spinosaurus is proof of that. It is a 15-meter swimming dinosaur with a crocodile face and a mysterious structure on its back, hunting giant sawfish in a Cretaceous swamp. It is absurd, it is real, and we are still learning what it was.